Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy and welcome to a brand new movie review. Today we'll be giving our review on a film that probably has the most alternative titles to a film I've ever seen. Giving our review on Fast and Furious 8, also called Fate of the Furious, also called Fast 8 or F8. I think I've seen it abbreviated as well. This will be a spoiler-free review and then we'll get into spoilers later and we'll let you know when we get into that. Now, before we kick off on our review of the movie, you might be wondering, where's George? Where's Tate? They couldn't make it today. They're really busy with stuff. That's why actually this review's been really late. We did originally want to do this last week. Couldn't get it out there. Today we have Ben, who we went to school together. We've spoken to each other about doing this review, and thankfully you've agreed to jump on it with me. So yeah, this is your first video on the channel. So thanks for joining me today.
No worries, no worries.
So of course, if anyone's seen the review we did before, what I did with George, you've got my opinions on the Fast and Furious franchise before this. In a nutshell, I'm a complete newcomer to this series. I watched for the first time all 7 movies the week before this new one came out. Ben, I think you're a bit more of a fan than I am of this franchise.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to just sort of give your introduction of your thoughts on this franchise and when you started watching it and things like that.
Yeah, I kind of followed it from the start, really, from when I was a kid. So I've just kind of followed it from the start all the way up until now. And, you know, I was a bit of an action buff when I was a kid, loved all them kind of films and, you know, actions, fast cars, the women in it and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just sold it for me when I was younger, really. So I've just kind of just stuck with it up until now. It kind of like between the first 2 were probably my favourite and now this one probably is my favourite one. But between there, I kind of started to lose interest a little bit. I think, like, was it Tokyo Drift 4 and 5?
Yeah, like 3 and 4. Yeah.
Yeah, not really as good, I don't think. But I think they've kind of developed this new style that they've got now. Because obviously, like I was saying to you a bit earlier, it's so far from like, what the original 2 were like now. And I think they've kind of owned in on what sort of style they're going for now with this new one, haven't they? So.
Yeah, so you've watched it. You've watched this series evolve from the first movie to this one, and we'll talk about it later when we get more in depth into the action scenes in this series. But this is like a completely different series at this point, a completely different movie. I think when they did Fast 5, they really found their niche of where they wanted to go with the franchise. And I think I've compared this series before to the Saints Row games. I don't know if you've ever played those, where the first 2 are a little bit ridiculous, but you can kind of take them in our reality. And then you get to like 3 and 4 and they're completely balls to the wall insane. It's exactly what this series is. Now, George can't join us today, as I said, but he has left me notes on what he thought of the film, which we'll go into when we give our initial thoughts on what we thought of this one. So, record-breaking Fast and Furious 8 now. I mean, this was huge. I knew it was going to be a big opening weekend. I didn't realize that this thing would break records and is now currently the highest grossing opening weekend worldwide of all time. It has beaten Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, a feat which I never thought was ever going to happen. It made $532 million worldwide on its opening weekend. It's currently standing at around $908 million, done on a budget of $250. Yeah, I think we're going to be getting sequels to this thing. I think we're going to be getting sequels and spin-offs.
People love these films.
People, yeah. But I was saying to you before we hit record, like, Star Wars had the advantage because, one, it's Star Wars. Everyone who's a fan is going to go and see that movie, whether they like it or not, about 2 or 3 times. Yeah. It had 3D as well. This didn't have 3D. People are just loving this movie. And I think it was brought out at a really smart point because that's why we haven't actually had much content on the channel in terms of new reviews, because there's pretty much been nothing out at the cinema. This is like took the tentpole of April until Guardians of the Galaxy 2 comes out next week, of course.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go into our initial thoughts on this movie then. So you've given your thoughts on the previous one. I think I know where you're going with this one, but just in a nutshell, spoiler-free, what did you think to Fast 8?
I loved it, I did. I mean, like obviously we touched on the action a little bit. The action, it's fantastic without spoiling anything. I kind of like how they went a bit more in-depth with some of like the backstory of some of the characters and that kind of thing. Yeah, there's a bit more to the storyline in this one, wasn't there? I think, and in my opinion, it's one of the reasons that people probably love these films so much is I think the way the cast work together. Because I know, obviously, when you watch a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff with the films, they're all very close. They've got good banter and they kind of have a laugh with each other. And I think it really translates on screen, and that's why people can kind of get on board with them quite well. So I loved it, really, in general. It was a great film.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, like from 5, they really honed in on that ensemble cast. I mean, yeah, you have your leads with like Vin Diesel and stuff, and in the previous ones, you of course had Paul Walker as well. But really, to me, this is now an ensemble movie. It's almost like a Mission Impossible film where each member of the team has their specific function. You've got, I've forgotten her name, Natalie Emmanuel, is it? She's in Game of Thrones. She's like the tech genius now with Ludacris's character. You've got Tyrese, who's my favorite character. He has been since the second movie, who's the comic relief. And everyone has a specific function now. You know, you've got The Rock as the muscle, and now you've got Statham in there too, which is really cool. So my opinions, as I said, relative newcomer. I know exactly what I'm getting into for these movies now. And I think that's where people are really going to fall on this movie, whether they're going to like it or not. I've spoken to people that love this movie. I've spoken to people that hate this movie. And I completely get why people hate these movies if it's not your cup of tea. It is dumb. It is loud. And that's exactly what I wanted. It reminds me, it's like a modern equivalent of those classic like 80s action movies with like Stallone or Schwarzenegger.
Definitely, yeah.
These are the kind of films now, especially with this one, where you know what you're getting in for. You know you're getting in there for the fast cars, the completely ridiculous plot and stunts. As you said at the start, the women. It's almost like a James Bond film. Like you have specific ingredients for James Bond films that you expect. Now we're at the point where we expect them from this, and I thought it was great. In all honesty,
yeah.
It might be my favourite one. I'll probably have to go back and watch some of the other ones because currently 5 was my favourite. It just hit that scene where they're dragging the safe behind them through the streets and like slingshotting it into cop cars, and I thought this is the greatest thing ever. But more so than any other franchise, they have found a way to just keep upping the ante with each one of these. And I'm at the stage now where 8 movies in, I'm welcoming a 9, a 10, an 11, however many you want to make. Like, just make them because they're so good. I do have notes from George as well. As I said, he couldn't be on the review, but he has given me some notes on Facebook. There's one sentence that I can't read out until we get to spoilers, but he put, basic thoughts, I loved it. It's as over the top and as stupid as the others and lives up to them. Even the story was better, and that's the bit where I can't talk about. Also, The Rock is God.
I agree with him on that one.
Yeah, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson to him is like his deity. So fair play. Yeah, so speaking of the characters, I think we'll jump into the film more now. As I said, this is going to be the spoiler-free section.
Yeah.
So we've got Vin Diesel in this one. Now, the plot for this one, if you've watched any of the trailers, it's that Dominic Toretto has gone rogue and has broken away from family, and we don't know why. And I think in the movie it's like a genuinely good mystery as you're watching it, because you are trying to think as like what would have compelled him to do it. New villain is on the block in Charlize Theron. She does have a name, but I just call her Charlize Theron in this movie, as I do with all the actors, who's this international terrorist who hires Dominic Toretto, and he's working for her, and family have to try and figure out why and go up against him, and you know, he's like the pinnacle, so this is the biggest task they've ever faced. Let me get your opinions on Vin Diesel as the lead in these films. Is he an actor that you like? Do you think he's good in these films, or what do you make of him?
Out of anything I think I've ever seen him in, this is probably the only franchise where I think I can get on board with his character, because I think he's quite a plain actor in my opinion. He's more like, I guess, kind of like the way you'd look at The Rock. He's just in it for the look sort of thing. So I do like him in this film because I like, obviously he's like the guy that kind of brings them all together, isn't he? So I do like him in this. I like how they put a bit more mystery into his character, like you said with this one, which obviously without going into spoilers, it kind of develops as the film goes on. So that was quite interesting to see in this one. But overall, you just find him, average actor. Really, I can tolerate him in the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah, to me, he's one of the most uncharismatic action leads you can have. Now, this is a film that has The Rock and Statham, and we'll talk about those characters next. They just ooze charisma in every single scene that they share together in these films. Vin Diesel's just really one note. He's really bland. He's kind of famous for the Triple X movies, which didn't that get a sequel earlier this year? Return of Xander Cage or whatever it was. I don't watch those movies. I don't really like him, but I do agree that this was probably one of the better films with him in. I still don't like his character, but they added more to his character. There's definitely a lot more at stake for the character personally in this movie, which we'll get into in spoilers, that I really kind of liked. And I think plot-wise, this is probably one of the strongest Fast and Furious movies out there, although plot is never the focus of these movies.
Yeah.
Let's talk the rest of family, and I guess you can play a Fast and Furious drinking game with this film. Just take a shot every time the word family is mentioned. You could do that from the trailer alone, but do it in the movie, you'll be dead on the floor within like the first half hour. So all the team's still there. Tyrese is still my favourite, the comic relief.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
Rock and Statham. This is like a match made in heaven that I never thought I'd get to see.
Yeah.
Go for it, man.
They just bounce off each other, don't they? I mean, there's one scene in it, obviously without spoiling what they say to each other, but where they kind of have a bit of banter with each other and they laugh, and it almost felt like that was like, you know, kind of a blooper, and it was just them kind of laughing at each other, and like, it just felt completely natural. Their one-liners in the film are just absolutely hysterical. I just think they're definitely like sort of match made in heaven. They bounce off each other, and if they were to make a spin-off, which we touched on a little bit earlier, them two in it together would just be perfect. I could see that working absolutely, and I'm kind of obviously interested to see where they do take it with them two in the future. They were probably my two favourite in the film for definite. I didn't expect them to kind of take the relationship of them two characters in the direction that they did, without spoiling it obviously, but yeah, I love them two together. It was hilarious.
I will say that, and you kind of see shots of it in the trailer, so I'm not giving anything away here. There is a prison scene involving these two characters, which is some of the best like fisticuffs action I've seen in an action movie ever. I just used the words fisticuffs, so I'm in 2017. But yeah, no, these two characters are great, and you're right. And I think a lot of, because The Rock clearly obviously was a wrestler, he's great on the mic. So he's used to throwing insults like that and coming up with stuff on the fly just to throw at someone. And Statham seems like the guy where he'd just throw it back, and that's exactly what you get in this movie. I think a lot of that was probably improvised. I can't wait till the DVD comes out, if there are sort of bloopers, to see other insults that didn't make it into the movie. And I think actually, because I stayed in for the credits during this thing, because not every Fast and Furious movie, but a lot of them have post-credit scenes which link into the next one. So I was hoping to see something that would get into 9. There was originally meant to be a post-credit scene in this film which was going to be more insults thrown between The Rock and Statham.
Oh, that would have been wicked.
But there was, I don't know if this is an actual feud or if this is just one that was created like a fake one like they do in wrestling, but there was a feud between Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Vin Diesel, and I think Vin Diesel removed the post-credit scene because this was still when he was sort of like having a bit of a Barney with The Rock. I don't know if that's true. I've seen rumours about that, but that would have been cool to see. We get another new character in this film, though, with Charlize Theron, who's our villain in this film. This is like my dream woman. Like, I absolutely love Charlize Theron. Every single scene she is, because she clearly knows she's in like this completely big, bombastic, dumb action movie, but she plays it so straight.
Yeah, see, I was going to say she's like so much more like dark and intense. Like when you see her in the trailers and everything, so I did not expect her to be so intense like that. And her eyes, man, like her eyes are like a weapon in their own right.
Yeah,
everyone's watched every like die-hard Fast and Furious. Like, oh no, bloody Dominic Toretto's evil now. You only have to look at her eyes. I'd take sides with her.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a scene in this movie where she's on the jet. This isn't a spoiler. She basically posts up in a jet in the sky, and she's wearing a Metallica shirt. And I'm like, Charlize Theron in a Metallica shirt is just like heaven for me.
Yeah.
No, I thought she was great. She played it straight. And these films, going back to like the Bond comparison, it almost, the last few films anyway, it feels like they have like a new set villain for every movie.
Yeah.
And she does play this kind of like a Bond villain, which I really like international terrorists.
Yeah.
I can't go into the plot, but stuff involving submarines in Russia, it felt very much like a Bond villain to me.
Yeah.
I will say, though, after seeing her in Mad Max Fury Road, which is a fucking great movie, and she's great in it too, as Furiosa, she gets really hands-on in that movie, and you know she can do the action, she can drive these cars, she can wield weapons and everything like that. Her character never really gets to a place like that in this movie. I was expecting for a character towards the end of the film to pick up the action a bit more and get stuck in when she becomes more desperate, but she really does kind of just direct people on keyboards, and she is very much that international terrorist figure. So you don't know, maybe we'll get her in another film. I don't know if that's a spoiler in itself. I'm moving on from that stuff anyway.
No, she was definitely brilliant in it though.
Let's talk the main focus of this film, the action.
The action.
Any part of the action. what did you think to it? Did it top what had come before? Do you think it's more or less kind of in line what we've seen before? What do you reckon to it?
I think, look, with the Fast and Furious franchise now, the mission statement of each film is, do you remember the big action scene in the last one? Let's one-up it in this one. So, and it's all choreographed so well as well. It's not like you sort of watch it and think, this is ridiculous. It's done in such a fun way, and like some of the camera angles that they use, like particularly in the prison scene, it's just all choreographed so well. Yeah, they definitely one-upped it from any of the other Fast and Furious films so far. I think they've pushed the boat out with this one. Definitely my favourite one for the action, without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, same here. And George actually sent me a link yesterday of some of like the car stunts being done in the street practically, where the zombie car scene, which you see in the trailer where the cars fall out of the multi-story car park, like they actually did that. They actually pushed cars out which exploded into the street. I mean, I would have loved to have seen that stuff actually be filmed, but the action is fantastic in this movie. Now, with these films, going back to like even the first film in the franchise, my favourite action, this is just in general in any action movie, is if you can do it practically. There really is a big difference, especially with car and stunt films like this, where if you can do it with a real car, you just get more of a sense of awe from it. I get the placement of CGI and everything like that. There are some moments in this movie, especially the opening scene, which I'll go into in spoilers, which did get a bit ridiculous with the CGI, and you can just chalk it up to, well, it's Fast 8, we know it's going to be ridiculous, but the scenes where they do use real cars and do real stunts completely juxtapose the scene where they do CGI, and I think that CGI does take away from it a little bit, but I didn't have as much of a problem with that as I did in Fast 7. Fast 7 got completely in the realms of ridiculous for me, or even in Fast 4 where that bus rolls down and he drives underneath it. It just looks like a video game, but no, the action's great. You've seen it in the trailers, the Russian submarine, the zombie cars. They're things in a movie I never thought I'd see, especially the zombie car thing. So this is at the stage now where, the sky's the limit with these films. If they're going to keep one up in it every time, is Fast 10 or like Fast X going to be set in space? Because
it's going to be in space, isn't it?
I think like with a franchise, if we're looking at like Friday the 13th, I think 10 is like the one that you get to space on. So if Kurt Russell says like, there's an international terrorist on the moon and we've got to get in this rocket ship and go up there, you know what?
He's the perfect character to deliver that mission though, isn't he? Do you think?
Oh, Kurt Russell as well. Like, I know he was introduced in the 7th one. I fucking love Kurt Russell. Like, he's just one of my favourite actors in ever. And I'm completely spoilt because I got this movie, and later this week I'm going to get Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he's playing Star-Lord's dad, so I can't wait for that as well.
He's made a comeback now, hasn't he, really?
Yeah, and he's still got it. Like, he's still got all the quips and stuff in there. We also have Scott Eastwood as well. I guess we can like mention him briefly. I kind of liked his character. He's like the pencil pushing kind of business guy who's the second in command to, well, I don't even know if he's the second in command to Mr. Nobody, Kurt Russell's character, but he's played mostly for laughs. He looks so much like his dad, it's unreal. Clint Eastwood. He's just kind of there. I don't really have much of an opinion on him.
I could see him, as Nathan Drake, from the Uncharted games. I think he's got the look for that kind of role. But I don't think he was used much really in the film, was he? Like you said, he was just kind of there as like a second in command sort of thing. But
it's like they start his character off, he's more comic relief to have that back and forth with Tyrese's character, and then they seem to just drop his character halfway through, and you don't really get much to do with him. What can we move on to? We can talk about the music briefly, like the score. Brian Tyler returns to do the music again. In all honesty, the music kind of fades into the background for me on this one in terms of the score. There are moments where the main theme kicks in, which is cool, but there's no definable theme, and I don't really think that's the focus of these films. You are just kind of in it for the action, and the music's there just to kind of intensify
I think the one scene that did kind of work really well with the music, it's not really memorable at all, but the prison scene with that like almost dubstep music in the background, the way it kind of kicks in with the action, I thought that worked really well, and with like the almost like GoPro action style filming, like that kind of thing, I thought was pretty cool. But nothing really too memorable, is there?
No, I mean in that prison scene as well, this is going more towards the shot. There are bits where they use shaky cam in it, and I hate shaky cam in action films, but for some reason it just added more to that. It felt like you were in that crowd, like just a mad rush of people. The dubstep definitely did work there. This is a film where you really can't go too much in depth into it, and it's spoiler free, obviously, so I guess we'll just end right now with our overall thoughts, and then we'll move into spoilers. So Ben, overall thoughts on Fast and Furious 8?
I really liked it. I think, like we've kind of touched on, they kind of seem to be able to one-up each film in a way that's fun. You look at it in the trailers and you kind of think, bloody hell, it looks a bit ridiculous and whatever, but they do it in such a fun, grounded way. And like you said, the use of all the practical effects for the stunts, which is big in the franchise. I just think it's a fun movie if you're an action fan, and obviously, like you said, back to like 80s sort of action with like silly one-liners and that kind of thing. It's perfect for it. It seems to be one of the only franchises that's going strong and maintaining that kind of, level of action. I loved it. I would definitely go and watch it again, and I would recommend it to anybody that's followed the franchise so far, for definite.
Yeah, I completely agree, and clearly people are going to see this multiple times, judging by how much money it's made. I loved it. I hate this phrase because every reviewer's using it for these kind of films. It's not going to win any Oscars. It's not going to pick up any Academy Awards for things like that. But it's a film that knows exactly what it is, what its audience is, and what the audience expects. The action is great. You've got all the banter there with the characters. This really is a great ensemble film, which I appreciated. It's got a great villain with Charlize Theron. And it does take some of the characters in a more personal direction and fleshes them out with their plot, which is going to lead into the next few. For people that don't like these films, if you don't like the previous 7, for example, don't go and watch this one. Like, this isn't going to change your mind. This is pretty much exactly the same as the ones that we've had before. I get people that don't like these films. If they find them dumb, if they find them abrasive, that's completely fine. But I do think that I'm at the stage now where I am a fan of this series now. I like these characters. I want to see more. They're just fun popcorn flicks. This is what summer blockbusters are all about. Yeah. So that'll do.
You either love it or hate it, don't you? You love it or you hate it, don't you? And if you love it, you really do love it. I mean, my girlfriend goes with me to the cinema all the time. She hates them. She dreads me taking her to these films. But I'll scream in the cinema all day. I mean, the action's kicking off and everything. I'll go mental. I love this kind of thing. So yeah, if you don't like any of the other ones, this one's just going to be ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of. You do have to really be invested in it, I think, in that kind of action style. So yeah, it's great.
And I mean, I went to see it relatively close to release date. I think it was like a couple of days after it was released. It was like packed in the cinema. There wasn't a free chair in there, and everyone was in it for the ride. Everyone was laughing at all the parts they should with the characters. So it is a nice atmosphere to be in a packed, crowded cinema with fellow fans of the film. But that'll do it for our overall thoughts on Fast and Furious 8. We're going to move into spoilers now. I'm going to comb through the movie as quick as we can, just touch on some of the main parts that we didn't want to give away. So if you haven't seen Fast and Furious 8 and you do want to go and see it, go watch it, come back to this review afterwards. So we kick off with the opening scene in this film, which is, it just kind of gets you into the rhythm of things again, kicks you off with an action scene. I think it's set in Cuba, isn't it, if I remember rightly?
Yes, Cuba.
And we have this race between Vin Diesel and random Cuban guy, who I can't remember the name of. There's an altercation between random Cuban guy and Vin Diesel's cousin in the movie about who gains ownership of the car, and Vin Diesel says he's going to race this guy for it. Now, I believe he says that the race is a mile, although I think he uses the term Cuban mile. So
Cuban mile, yeah. This
race just goes on for bloody ages, like 10 to 15 minutes, and they're driving at like hundreds of miles an hour through the streets of Cuba. I didn't really care for this. I know why it's there. You have to open with an action scene. I get the placement, like narratively, of opening with an action scene, but it gets so ridiculous. Like the way that Vin Diesel wins this race.
Yeah, it's stupid.
It's like so much CGI in it as well. He basically turns his car into like a fucking bomb. I can't describe it any other way. Like they say, like, oh, you can't drive, man. Like your engine's gonna go nuclear. He says, like, that's bring it on. And he just like reverses. Well, doesn't he like reverse over the finish line and he bails out of the car and it like explodes?
At like 200 miles an hour, he dives out without a scratch on him or anything.
Get used to that in this movie, by the way. Like, no one even like breaks a sweat in this fucking movie. Do you have any opinions on the opening scene? It was just kind of there for me.
Yeah, it was just. I knew it was going to open with something like that anyway, and I just kind of brushed it off a little bit. Like, okay, it probably won't be that ridiculous all the way through in terms of with the CGI and turning the car into a bomb. It's just ridiculous, really. And the thing that made me laugh at the end, it goes through all this mad action, big race, dives out of the car at the end, and then he's just like, oh, keep the car anyway. I was like, what? You just nearly killed yourself and you're letting him keep the car anyway.
It's like your respect is enough or something. And all like the kids like come and congratulate him. It's like the ending training montage of Rocky 2 where all the kids like flock around him. And there's so much machismo in this movie. I mean, clearly between The Rock and Statham, but even with Vin Diesel and the random Cuban guy at the start, I'm just there in the cinema like just fuck each other already. Like there's so much like sexual tension between you two right now. So then we get the wrecking ball scene, and I can't actually remember what comes of that. Isn't it just like a mission they're on? Like we don't actually know what the mission was. They're just sort of like
it's like a bit of a chase scene, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah. Like I would have loved if they'd have opened the movie with that.
Yeah.
Like, just have the entire crew there, and the wrecking ball when it swings back, like it's all been planned out ahead of time by Ludacris's character, and it's got like the smiley face on it on the other side when it just brushes past Tyrese. Love that.
Yeah.
And this is really when Vin Diesel goes rogue, because he meets Charlize Theron just before this, and you know she's bad news, and she says like she's clearly got dirt on him, or she's got something on him. You don't know at this stage what it is.
Yeah.
And it cuts away just before it. So right there I was like, this is a great mystery. Like I want to know what's pushed him to this point. And I guess we're in spoilers now, so we can talk about it. I didn't expect it was going to be his girlfriend from... No. I'm useless with names in this franchise. The Cuban chick from... Not Cuban. Brazilian chick from 5, I think she was introduced.
Fast 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did not see that coming at all. I thought it potentially could have had something to do with Paul Walker's character, maybe. Wasn't too sure what to expect, but no, I did not see that coming at all, so it was kind of interesting to see it unfold to that.
Yeah, no, and I like this franchise now because I'm at the point now after I've watched these films where characters come back. I do have that reaction. It's like being at a Marvel movie, and they bring a character in, and you kind of like pep up a bit, and you see like, oh, this is great. But no, I think that the whole wife, well, she wasn't wife, was she? She was like girlfriend for a while until he rediscovered Michelle Rodriguez, which is, you know, fair play. But but like the whole girlfriend and the baby thing, like I thought that was probably the most believable way as why he would have turned, and all those scenes were great, especially with Charlize Theron. There's so much, she plays the villain character so well, especially the scene later, which we'll talk about, where she offs Vin Diesel's wife. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I think she's so intense and dark, but it almost feels like she's out of place in a good way, because you'll get all this like happy banter action scene going on, and then it'll skip to like a really intense scene with her, and it's almost like, whoa, like the tone of the movie's just shifted in 30 seconds because she's back now. Look.
Yeah. And I did like Vin Diesel trying to act against Charlize Theron. It's like, mate, she's just acting rings around you at this point. It's like the bit in the trailer where he overacts it to the max, where he's like, got a gun on her. He's like, I've got no choice, or something like that. I was just pissing myself in the cinema at it. Like, he's trying so hard.
He does that like 3 times as well, doesn't
he? We've talked about it before, but The Rock and Statham, the prison fight, fucking hell. Like... Yeah. If I'm looking at fistfights in films, like, you've got, like, The Raid and The Raid 2 and films like that, The Matrix, whatever.
Yeah.
This was great. In terms of just sheer choreography, and you talked about the choreography a minute ago, this was insane. You've got Statham doing, like, all this parkour shit, like, over metal fences and over people. The Rock's just like a tank. Like, when we're introduced to The Rock and he gets put in prison, doesn't he, like... I'm trying to remember, doesn't he, like, break
the handcuffs?
And it's just doing, like, bicep curls. And you believe it, like, this is essentially a superhero film at this point. Like, these characters are indestructible.
Yeah. It's just a bit when he's standing about to go for them, there's the 3 guards, so then he just kind of gives them the eye, and you see all 3 of them fly at the wall at the same time. That kind of, like, over-the-top action, but it's so good.
And I like The Rock as well, like, his sort of, his mannerisms and his, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, his sort of belief in the law still. He's basically Judge Dredd at this point. Like, I love when the doors open. Like, I think all the doors open to the prison, and he's like, no, close these doors. Like, I'm going to find a way out of here myself. I'm going to keep punching this wall until I eventually break through it. And he's at the point where I'm like, he could punch through that wall. Like, I believe that he could do that at some point.
I think he gained loads of extra muscle just for this film, didn't he? I've seen something on the internet about him. I don't know exactly how much it was, but he got significantly bigger just for the film.
Yeah, he's like the size of a fucking cow, isn't he? Like in this movie,
he eats like 10 meals a day, doesn't he? He's just
he's great though. I love The Rock. Then it's like the bit before the zombie cars where
Watch Dogs 2. That's all I can think of with that ghost car scene is the Watch Dogs 2. Have you played it?
No, I haven't played. No.
Oh, you can take control of the cars and that. It's all I could think of when I saw that scene.
Before that, though, we have it's quite a tense scene. Actually, I thought it was really good how they did it. How Charlize Theron's got all cameras on Vin Diesel, and he says that something's broke in his car in the bonnet. So he lifts it up, and he's done it in such a way where it obscures his vision from all the cameras.
Yeah.
And then you get fucking hell, Helen Mirren's character. I didn't know she was going to be in this movie. I didn't follow like the behind the scenes.
No.
Now, Helen Mirren clearly is British. She's an English actress. She is doing one of the worst Cockney accents since like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins.
Probably worse than that.
Yeah, like I was watching it and thinking like it took me a while to twig that it was actually Helen Mirren's character. Yeah. And I was like, oh god, like I know you're in like a summer blockbuster and everything. You don't have to put like any Shakespearean effort into it, but that's the accent you're sticking with. Like, watch EastEnders for like UK viewers. EastEnders, the soap there, they have better accents than she does in this. Like, Jesus Christ.
Especially towards the end when you see her like again, without spoiling it from C. It doesn't really spoil anything, but when you see her again towards the end with Jason Statham, look, it gets even worse, doesn't it?
Yeah. She's like about to break into like chim chimney chim chim chiree from there. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But you just kind of like, this is the movie where you'll see something dumb and you just kind of shrug and go, like you exactly know what you're in for. We get to the zombie car scene. This is my favourite part of the movie, I think. It was an action scene that doesn't go on too long. It doesn't outstay its welcome, which I think that the submarine one perhaps does a little bit. I think that one went on a little bit too long.
Yeah.
And just zombie cars in general, like, this is something I haven't seen in a... Well, I guess I have seen it before. I think Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines did something similar where she could take over cars. But this is just taken to, like, the nth degree. This is insane, the amount of... The pile-up at the end of, like, the action scene basically caps off the action scene. I couldn't tell how much of that was done with real cars or CGI cars, but... You know, it's like the camera just fixes on this one portion of the street of these cars piling up, and you're just wondering when they're going to cut to the next scene, but more and more cars are coming in. It was like the Blues Brothers. Like this is like an even bigger pile up than that movie, which like set the threshold for how many cars had piled up.
It's almost like, you know, them little coin machines you used to get in arcades where you drop the 10p in and they start to pile off the edge.
Yeah, and the bit as well where they have to try and lasso Vin Diesel's car, and they all have to work together. Oh, it's so good.
It was cool.
And how he breaks away as well. Charlize Theron shoots Vin Diesel's girlfriend. Great moment. I didn't know that they'd kill her, and I was kind of actually bummed out that they did kill that character. I would have liked to have seen her carry on. This brings me on to another bit though that I want to bring up. This is going back to George's opinions that I couldn't talk about before. He's put, even the story was better, especially the family angle, although no idea how she got pregnant, as she should have been pregnant in 7. So I think she appeared in 7. I think she was with Jason Statham and The Rock. And she clearly, evidently wasn't pregnant in that movie. And I don't know how long's passed, clearly probably 9 months since that movie to this one, but it doesn't feel like it does. It feels like it takes place almost directly after.
Yeah, it does, definitely.
They kind of fucked the continuity up on that one, I think. But again, I don't care.
Brush it off. You just brush it off.
Right. That brings us on to Russia. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this in the introduction. I can't remember if I mentioned this to you before we hit record. This was the part of the film for me where I went to see it with my mate, and I just started bursting out laughing. I think Kurt Russell was giving some exposition of what they've got to do in Russia with the nuclear launch codes and things like that. And I just started giggling in my seat, and my friend turned to me like, "What the fuck are you laughing at?" And I was just like, I remember like the first film of this franchise, where when it started off it was just a humble series about street racing. The biggest action climax at the end of the movie was trying to like steal like video DVD combis from the Panasonic from the back of a truck. And now we're in a film where we've got to steal nuclear launch codes to set nukes off from a Russian submarine that we've got to stop from taking over the world with Charlize Theron and an invisible jet in the sky. And I was just pissing myself laughing at the cinema. I'm like, we are at this point now in this franchise where nuclear launch codes and submarines are a thing, and I just loved it. Like, this is what I want from a movie. Just the dumber the better. So the whole Russian scene, do you want to go into this a bit?
I think you're right in the sense that it probably went on a little longer than it needed to, but I think obviously going into spoilers, it's kind of where you see Vin Diesel's character kind of make his comeback.
Yeah.
And roll back in with the team and that kind of thing. That's probably the part of the scene that I enjoyed the most. I just thought it started to get maybe a little bit too ridiculous from for me, especially like when the submarine bursts out of the water, explodes, but none of the ice breaks and all that kind of thing, and they kind of almost like park all the cars around Vin Diesel to protect him from the fire and all that.
I forgot that bit. Yeah.
It definitely probably went on a bit longer, like you said, but I did like the aspect of when you see kind of Vin Diesel's character come in and make his comeback. That kind of kept it ticking along for me nicely.
Yeah,
but it's probably just a bit too long.
Yeah,
like you said.
No, I mean, I remember when I saw the trailer for this thing, and with the submarine breaking out the ice, and Tyrese going like, "Oh damn!" like on the car, like when he falls into the water, and I thought this is going to be good. This is going to be a good scene, and the scene doesn't disappoint. Although I do think it goes on a bit too long. Although I did really panic, and I guess this is tying into the length again. I think they mentioned in the movie that they've got to drive 10 miles to get away, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember to the start of this movie with the Cuban race where they say it's a mile long, and that scene alone went on for about 15 minutes, and I thought, oh fucking hell, we're going to be here for like another 2 hours. This is going to be ridiculous. And it does go on long, but thankfully not to the mathematical degree that it technically should. And even with Fast and Furious 6, where they're on a runway, aren't they, and they're having to try and stop the plane from taking off.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of, that scene, actually.
Yeah. I think people have worked that out, where that runway, with how fast they're driving and for how long they're driving, would be like a 50-mile runway or something stupid like that. But speaking of Fast 6, actually, we get another character come back from that movie with Luke Evans' character of Shaw, isn't it? Which is Jason Statham's brother.
Shaw, yeah.
Most famously playing Bard the Bowman from the Hobbit movies. That's where I'm always going to remember him from. Or Gaston now, I guess, from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
So he shows up with like his face burnt because he got fucked up at the end of Fast 6. Not to the degree I think we see him at the beginning of 7, because when you see him in that hospital bed, he kind of looked like Two-Face from The Dark Knight, and now he's just...
Yeah, definitely.
He's Luke Evans with like a little bit of makeup on, not too much. It was great seeing them back again, and the bit in the trailer, I always wondered what that scene was going to be, where you've got the two people in the, I don't even know what you'd call them, like the tactical espionage suits when they wingsuit into the jet. I wondered what that was going to be.
Oh yeah, I completely missed that in the trailer, actually. You know,
I just thought it was going to be, Diesel or Tyrese, whoever that had to get into a plane somehow. I didn't expect it was going to be Statham or Luke Evans. That was great seeing those two. It did feel like a reunion again, even in the 8th installment. I need to talk about Charlize Theron's like henchman. For any Game of Thrones fans out there, Tormund Giantsbane, he's basically this Nordic guy with a giant ginger beard, and he's essentially playing exactly the same character he played in Game of Thrones. Like, he hasn't changed at all. You could take him out of Game of Thrones, put him in this movie. It was cool to see him in a movie again. He's a great actor.
He just reminds me, I don't know if you listen to him, the Mastodon guitarist. He looks like the Mastodon guitarist, the guy with the tattoos on his head and everything.
Yeah, it's all in the beard. It's all in the beard. So eventually Vin Diesel turns good, as you mentioned. Then we have the Statham baby fight. Well, not them Statham's fighting a baby. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. It's Statham and baby versus bad guys.
I absolutely loved that scene. I was laughing all the way through that. It's ridiculous, but it's so funny. The way he keeps on coming back to the baby and explaining, I'm just going to knock this guy out now, and I'm going to come back, just keep listening to your music. That killed me, that did.
Wasn't it like Alvin and the Chipmunks on the headphones when he puts...
It just does it from like his smartwatch. It's probably my favourite film, actually, that I've seen Jason Statham in for a very, very long time. I love his character in this film, because he's done that many like just silly, rubbish action movies for so long now, and this is probably the only one where he's come into it and I've really enjoyed his character, and he literally is just playing the same character that he would in any other film. He just seems more enjoyable in this because of him kind of playing a more, I guess, like villainish sort of role, especially in the last one obviously, but in this one he's still, you're a bit unsure of whether he's actually going to be good until the end. Well, I was anyway. I don't know about you, but yeah, I really enjoyed him in this film. Yeah,
Statham for me is an actor who, kind of like Vin Diesel, is an action guy I've never really been fussed with. I've never really been taken with any of the stuff he's done before. Yeah. The Transporter films, Crank's not too bad, but I don't really like him in it. I guess the only other ones I can think of are like the Expendables films, and he's completely outshone by the likes of, you know, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, and all the other wealth of old 80s action stars in that film. But he is likeable in this movie. I liked him in Seven. I will say that I think the team welcome him with open arms into the group very easily. Like, there doesn't seem to be... There's a little bit of animosity, but not to the degree that it should be, considering that, well, he killed Han in Seven, didn't he? I know it ties back to Tokyo Drift with the third one, but like, they kind of just welcome him in, unless in the ninth one they're going to find out that he killed Han. Or did they already know that? I can't even remember. All these films just kind of blur into one for me. But the baby scene, you're right, it's completely ridiculous, and I don't know how many of those reactions from the baby were done practically, or if it was CGI. It didn't look like a creepy CGI baby. It looked like they actually got those reactions somehow from the baby. It's ridiculous. And there was a moment where, doesn't Charlize Theron, like, blow the door off the plane, and it's like in the airlock and everything's getting pulled out? She escapes, which I was glad about, because I was hoping they wasn't going to kill her character. I didn't know whether they were going to have like a different villain for each of these films, but it's now at the possibility where she could come back, she could get more of that hands-on approach I wanted to see her get with the action, so I'd like to see that. But she like grabs a parachute, and I was thinking, like, is Statham going to put like a little baby parachute on like on the stroller or whatever? This is a film that could do that. There's
just already one built into the stroller.
You know, it is what it is. We've said that so many times. That's basically my review on the film. It is what it is. You know what you're getting in for. The film kind of wraps up, and we get the epilogue where the baby's brought back to Vin Diesel, and I mean, as soon as the baby was introduced and she says something along the lines of that, I haven't named him yet because I think...
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
I knew where it was going to go, but it was nice that they did that with calling the baby Brian.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen as well.
Because I didn't know the baby was going to be a thing in this movie. I thought that the ending they did with Paul Walker was perfect, and they wasn't even going to refer to him again after that. But I like that, and I'm thinking at the stage now where if this franchise is still going in like 20 years time or whatever, would the new Brian technically be able to take over? Like, Vin Diesel's going to be old as shit and not going to be able to drive anymore, and it's going to be like a passing of the torch movie to young Brian. Then we're going to have like a whole rebooted franchise
that will be in space.
It's going to get there, mate. Trust me, it's going to get there. So let's talk.
They didn't really touch too much on Paul Walker's character, did they?
No.
That's what, like, bringing that up. That's what they didn't really explain anything about him, did they? Or like where his character is in the story and that kind of thing, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought that would be quite a big part of the film.
I think they've kind of done it out of respect now. Like, they don't. That's happened. They tie that up. I mean, I love that ending to Seven. I thought that was the perfect send-off for that character. Although it does kind of mean that the actress who plays Vin Diesel's sister, she's kind of out of work now too, because she's with Paul Walker's character in the continuity of this movie. No, I didn't have a problem. They didn't really bring him into it. I was just hoping that the Scott Eastwood, is it Scott Eastwood? Yes, I did. I was just hoping his character wouldn't become the new Paul Walker character.
That's what I was kind of thinking. They were trying to remodel him after him a little bit.
I mean, he kind of looked exactly like him, didn't he? He had the stubble. He kind of looks a little bit like him as well. I don't think they took him to that degree, thankfully, and I hope they don't in the next ones.
Yeah.
So we can talk about, we'll round off after this, but we can talk about the future of this franchise. Sky's the limit. This movie's making over $1 billion in 2 weeks, which is insane. This has clearly got a lot more to go at the cinema. It's #1 at the box office, second week running. I think it's going to have a drop off when Guardians of the Galaxy 2 comes in, and then we kind of hit summer movie season then, so it might peter out, but it doesn't matter. It's made over $1 billion. Would you like to see that spin-off with The Rock and Statham, if that is... I don't know definitely. If it's 100% confirmed yet, but...
Yeah, even if they don't do a spin-off with them, to just put them two in a film and it be something completely different anyway, not even related to the Fast and Furious franchise, I'd like to see that, because they just seem to have a great like on-screen chemistry, don't they? So if they do it, I would like to see it within that franchise, just to see how they develop the two characters together, because they kind of touch on him a little bit being like... I think he's got like some sort of the highest award you can get for being in, what was he, like the Secret Service or something like that. You know, when he's fixing the car, and he kind of touches on that, and I guess that's kind of where they start to bond, isn't it? And I could just see them two going on some sort of mission together. It'd be great.
And I want it to be set after this movie. Like, I don't want them to go back and have The Rock try to pursue Jason Statham's character. I want it to be the state they are now. I can't remember the line exactly. I'd love to find the line of this on the internet, but I think you mentioned a line that just like brought the house down. Was it the one about like he's going to punch his teeth so far down his throat?
Yeah, I'm going to punch your teeth so far down your throat you're going to need a toothbrush up your ass just to clean them again. That killed me, that did. And they both laugh at each other, don't they? I definitely think that wasn't scripted.
That's what I mean. I wondered if that was an outtake or not.
Yeah, I don't think that was scripted. I think that was just complete, like, their reaction to it. And I think when the DVD comes out, you might see that because it just felt natural, didn't it? The way they reacted to it.
Yeah. I'd love to see a spin-off, and I think this is a franchise at the point where people will still go and see it. They like these characters. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's absolute star power at this point. You can put his name on anything. Far cry from his earlier days of like the Scorpion King and the Tooth Fairy. Now his name actually carries weight, and Statham as well. That would be great. And Fast 9 onwards, I want to see more of these films now. Fast 8 was the first Fast film I've seen in the cinema, and I'm hungry for more now. I think 9, let me have a look on Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, it says that a sequel is scheduled to be released April 19th, 2019.
I did see something about them potentially bringing that character of Han back into it somehow.
Well, judging by all the characters that kind of die and come back, with like Michelle Rodriguez's character from the fourth one, like, sure, I'd love to see Han back. He was one of my favourite characters, and it kind of gutted me that he was. I don't know how he would have got out of that car though, unless he's going to be like Luke Evans's character and like all char-grilled and like crispy like Freddy Krueger or something.
Yeah. Or I hope they don't do something silly like that whole Jason Statham bit with him was completely staged and actually he was part of something else. Do you know what I mean? Like, I could imagine them doing something like that, but who knows? The sky's the limit with these films now, isn't it? So.
And you know what? Even if they do something stupid like that, what will our reaction be? Shrug. Okay, and we'll move on from it, I'm sure. But no, with 9, if I'm going to give what I hope Charlize Theron comes back for 9. I'd like to see a villain continue into the second one.
Yeah.
I don't want her to be like, you know, the puppet master and then we have a new villain with 9. I want to see her continue. I think
now she's escaped as well. I could imagine her character just being ruthless now because she's lost everything. She had this big plan, it's failed, and now she's just going to be out for revenge sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that.
Or even if she thinks like the best way now to counter them is to bring herself down to their level and get in like a car and do more of this. Like, I think that would be great.
Definitely.
I think we've pretty much said everything on this movie. Overall thoughts again, I love this movie. If you've seen the previous ones, this is exactly the same. Go and see it. Chances are you've probably seen it already. I know we're a little bit late to the party on this review. If you don't like these movies, if you don't like this kind of action movie, stay away from it. There's plenty of other films coming out in the next couple of weeks that you'll probably enjoy. But for me, I'll need to rewatch the other ones, but right now this is probably my favourite. And for an 8th installment of a franchise to say that's my favourite, that just shows the testament of this series.
I completely agree. Completely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, so that'll do it for our in-depth review of Fast and Furious 8. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this film. Did you like it? Didn't you like it? Where would you rank it in terms of the rest of the entries in the franchise? Anything you like, please do drop us a comment. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, we'll have many more movie reviews. Next week we'll have one for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Really looking forward to that one. There'll be more trailer reactions from me as and when trailers come out. I think the first trailer for Kingsman 2 is coming out tomorrow, so I'll be jumping on a reaction for that. So be sure to hit that subscribe button. Also hit that bell icon next to it for notifications so you get a notification every time we upload something new. That'll do it from us. Thanks again, Ben, for jumping on with me today. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
And until next time, we'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.